What's going on, everybody? Khalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G and the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2021. Now, before we go any further, as always, I do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, and in case you want to learn more about either phone individually, I will be linking to several other videos about each of them in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G, we're getting a 6.52-inch IPS LCD display with a 720p resolution, a PPI of 269, and an aspect ratio of 20:9. With the Moto G Stylus 5G, we're getting a 6.8-inch IPS LCD display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 386, and a 20:9 aspect ratio as well. So on one hand, the display we're getting with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 really isn't bad, and for the activities where you don't need amazing image quality or anything, and really just more light stuff in general, like web browsing, occasional social media use, and then stuff like reading, this display is going to be perfectly fine for those activities. That being said though, with the Moto G Stylus 5G, not only is the display we're getting here a bit larger, but with the 1080p resolution versus again only 720p with the Revvl 6, the image is a lot sharper with the Moto G Stylus 5G, and in general on this display, things do look quite a bit better. So if you're doing a lot of stuff like watching videos, for example, where you really want the image to look nice, or maybe you're just going to be on your phone a lot, then in that case, you will get a better experience with the Moto G Stylus 5G. Now for storage, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, this phone is getting 64GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, which really isn't bad. Sure, it's not really amazing or anything, but for the average user, as long as you're mindful of what you're putting on your phone, and you make sure to use a microSD card whenever you can, with 64GB, you will at least get by. On the other hand though, with the Moto G Stylus 5G, this phone is getting 128GB, with microSD card expansion as well. So in general, the Moto G Stylus 5G, having double the storage of the T-Mobile Revvl 6, is going to have a huge advantage here. So if you're someone who's constantly downloading stuff like apps and games, or maybe you're an average user, but you just never want to have to worry about storage. Either way, if it's important to you to have a lot of storage, the Moto G Stylus 5G will be a much better choice. Now for security features, both phones do have Face Unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners. With the T-Mobile Revvl 6, it's right here on the power key, and with the Moto G Stylus 5G, it's right here on the back. But starting with the Revvl 6, let's go ahead and give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the Moto G Stylus 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, both fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive, no issues at all. And again, remember, both phones do have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now for the camera setups here, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, for the front-facing camera, we got a water drop notch design. You can kind of see it in there. This camera is 5 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 13 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. For video, this phone has a max recording quality of 2K in the rear camera and 1080p in the front, so while there's no 4K here, definitely nice that we're at least getting a quality slightly better than 1080p. With the Moto G Stylus 5G, we got a hole punch design for the front-facing camera. This camera is 16 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 5 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So in general, as far as features go, both phones at least have decent camera setups. But keep in mind, again, the Moto G Stylus 5G does have an ultra-wide camera, whereas with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, while we are getting a macro camera, there's no ultra-wide camera here. In addition to this, when it comes to actual photo quality, I would say the Moto G Stylus 5G is significantly better. So if you're taking a lot of pictures, you want a wider variety of features, or maybe you just want better photos in general, either way, the Moto G Stylus 5G is definitely going to be a much better choice. That being said though, one advantage the Revvl 6 5G does have is that again, this phone can record 2K videos, whereas with the Moto G Stylus 5G, in both the rear and front cameras, this phone only has a max recording quality of 1080p. Now in my opinion, this is really not that big a deal, because overall, I feel like not that many people actually care about 2K anyway. But just know, if you do want to record 2K videos, you can do this with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, but not with the Moto G Stylus 5G. Now when it comes to RAM and processor, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor. With the Moto G Stylus 5G, we're also getting 4GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 480 5G processor. Now when it comes to overall performance, I don't think either phone is really that much faster than the other. The T-Mobile Revvl 6 might be a tiny bit faster, but the Moto G Stylus 5G really isn't far behind, and in my opinion, it's not enough to make an actual noticeable difference. For basic everyday use, stuff like web browsing, social media, light mobile gaming, either phone will get the job done, and for most people, you are at least going to get a pretty good experience. That being said though, of course, if you're expecting a really fast phone, maybe you're really going to be on your phone all day, doing more demanding activities and stuff like that, in that case, of course, both phones will probably feel a bit slow, and you're most likely going to want something faster. But again, for everyone else, for more average, regular use, I do think either phone is plenty fast enough. Now, I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both phones. In here, the scores I got. So again, really close. Looks like for the single core score, the Revvl 6 is a tiny bit higher. And for the multi-core score, technically the Moto G Stylus 5G is a little bit higher, but honestly, the difference is negligible. And again, in real life, when you're actually using these phones, you're really not going to see a huge performance difference between the two. But again, for regular everyday use, as long as you're not doing anything super demanding like high performance mobile gaming, for example, I do think either phone will be fast enough. Now for the battery, with the Revvl 6, we're getting a 4500 mAh battery that supports 15 watt fast charging, and with the Moto G Stylus 5G, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery that supports 10 watt fast charging. So between the two, of course, with the 5000 mAh battery versus 4500, the Moto G Stylus 5G is going to get slightly better battery life, but honestly overall, unless battery life is really the #1 priority for you, if you are looking for a phone that has a good battery, either phone will get the job done perfectly fine, because while being slightly smaller, the battery on the T-Mobile Revvl 6 is still really good, and it is most likely going to last you all day. Now for software, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, we are getting Android 12, whereas with the Moto G Stylus 5G, as of the recording of this video at least, this phone does currently have Android 11. Now I'm not sure if either of these phones are going to be getting any more major updates, but if the software is really important to you, then in general I would probably go with something a bit newer, or maybe like a Samsung or something. But if you just want the better software between the two, then of course, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 with Android 12 versus Android 11 with the Moto G Stylus 5G will have an advantage. Now as far as other features go, unfortunately neither phone has NFC, which at this point in 2023 is really too bad. Because in this day and age, with contactless mobile payment services becoming more and more popular and widely used, even if you don't currently use it, you may end up wanting to use it in the future. And if you don't have a phone that has NFC, then you're not even going to have that option. So overall, if tap and pay is a feature you see yourself ever using, then again, keep in mind, neither of these phones has NFC. And because of this, you're probably going to want to go with something else. In addition to this, the Moto G Stylus 5G, of course, as the name suggests, does have a stylus. So if you do want a phone that has a stylus, then of course, the Moto G Stylus 5G is the one you're going to want. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, in pretty much every way where there's actually a difference, the Moto G Stylus 5G is the better device here. The Stylus 5G has a much better display, so if you're on your phone a lot, especially consuming a lot of content, this is definitely going to make a difference. It also, again, has doubled the storage, a significantly better camera setup, albeit the T-Mobile Revvl 6 can record 2K videos, so if you really want to do that, then maybe the T-Mobile Revvl 6 makes sense for you. But again, for everything else relating to the camera, the Moto G Stylus 5G is just better. It also has a slightly larger battery, and of course, it does have a stylus, whereas the Revvl 6 doesn't. Aside from that, the only real advantage the Revvl 6 has is that again, this phone does have Android 12, whereas the Moto G Stylus 5G only has Android 11. But in general, even though it's been out for quite a while now, so it's really not a new phone, I feel like especially with the deals you can get on it now, the Moto G Stylus 5G is especially worth it. So if you're looking for an entry-level 5G phone for more basic activities, and you want a really good display, a nice camera, a large battery, and a stylus, then this is definitely a phone to consider. But this concludes my comparison between the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G and the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the video description, where I will be linking to several other videos about each phone, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Cleepus Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.